Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matyash, and I have with me Sarah Jennings. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This is the second time actually we've tried this, but this time it'll work as
Yeah.
magically. So let's talk about you're now into healing arts and all that, but let's talk about your beginnings. You said when we talked off air that you were burning the candle at both ends and you were partying a lot and all that. Things I can't relate to until later on, actually, but I had a
Yeah.
different upbringing. Go on.
Well, burning the candle at both ends to me is that, you work really hard and then you party really hard as well. So, but then that also links into being a perfectionist or a high achiever or, highly motivated person. Yes, I was doing that. I was always working really hard and I did really well in lots of different academic stuff. But at the same time, I grew up in Switzerland and I was at university in the UK. And I think I felt that and I'd had an amazing education in international schools. Like it felt like a really amazing, privileged education, where your teachers love what they're doing and everything. And so when I went to uni, I just felt like it was almost like my little Swiss bubble had been ripped off, like the plaster had been ripped off. And I was like, the world is like, how? And it felt like I'd been educated, you're going to be a world leader and all that kind of thing that a lot of international school kids get.
Right.
And then when you go to university, you're like, oh my God, I thought I was British, but maybe I'm not British. And then what have I been taught that doesn't really match up to reality? And so I just I think for me, the partying side was a sort of deliberate cultural conditioning scrambling, but I think I went too far. And the partying kind of basically, I think it really did alter my interface with reality quite drastically. And I think what we started talking about last time was that I started seeing energy different. I started seeing reality differently. And obviously people were like, oh, well, you were high, but I knew myself well. I'm very grounded really and quite, intelligent, and I hadn't lost my mind. What my interpretation was that I was vibrating at a slightly different speed to normal, like my heart rate's faster or something like that, sleeping less.
Right.
And what I could see was, I could see things that were there, but that we don't normally see, that matched the reality. Some of the things were pretty incredible. Like there was this small lane that behind the university that went into a small village, and I could see every footprint that had ever walked on that path and every hoof print.
What?
Yeah, it was like, I would say like a meter and a half thick of footprints, and I could just see it all. I was like, whoa, that's really crazy.
Like all that ever walked there, or all that ever walked in the past year?
Ever. It was more like way back. It felt like I could see it back in time. It was almost like I could see the human imprints of movement and patterns and energetics.
Wow.
And then it started happening looking at people. So I would be able to see things happening. And it got really uncomfortable when I started realizing I can't do this anymore. Like I can't party and burn the candles and all that kind of thing. I really need things to change. I mean, this is fast forwarding years of my life.
Yeah.
But I realized that what I was seeing wasn't particularly comfortable, and I didn't want it to take my life over. It was like scary sometimes. And I remember one time being at a kind of festival, and I could just see these entities, for a better word, jumping from person to person that was all out of it and open. And it was just disgusting. I was just like,
Oh
oh
my gosh. So this was like a negative entity, an astral like entity.
yeah. So I mean, it's quite controversial actually that we've ended up here, but out of all the places that
Let's get it.
and I don't actually write about it apart from a personal perspective, but what I see, the party scene is a big thing in the UK. It's like the alternative cultural scene. A lot on one side, it's like, where rebelling against the norm and the politics and government, you know, and there's like a rebellion, and this is us being free. But actually there's another side which is purely hedonistic and actually quite destructive, and they leave a mess, and, you know, actually
Yeah.
destroying their energetic structures and possibly their relationships and their life force. But I see it often as like a siphoning of the youth's creative life force in a way. And
Right.
those activities feed off that sort of thing, and it's actually also very convenient that everyone's distracted getting high and off, you know, every week. It's and then you can look at it from a kind of socio political, you know, business side of things. It's also allowing people that valve, you know, the let off some steam on the weekend
Yeah,
after
yeah, yeah.
9 to 5, you know. So
Yeah, I think
but
some
yeah,
people need creativity. People need an
yeah.
outlet. People need an outlet. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's just partying is the only outlet, and drugs, which
Yeah.
is not too helpful.
No. And, you know, and I think there are, yeah, there could be better ways. And I've actually kind of secretly, part of me has been like, oh, I hope they're having a nice rest, all the party people during the pandemic. You know, I'm sure loads of new businesses and new things have happened for people that might have been at a festival every weekend. Maybe
Right.
new things happening.
Well, so what did you study when you went to university?
Um, so what I studied, and that wasn't me thinking about what I studied, I was like just checking that they weren't
Yeah,
tangents that I'm into. Um, So what I studied was something at the time was called behavior in organizations. And I actually started off in economics, international economics, and I was like, I don't understand. I'm a really good student, but I'm failing. And I said, I can't. The money, you know, money in my hand and what you're talking about does not make any sense. So they sent me upstairs to the rebel department. And
which is organizing society the way you think it should be, like changing the society, changing the world.
well, it was more of a kind of historical look at
Mm,
social, you know, social industrial change.
mm,
And we're looking, like we mentioned last time, like power, control, and yes, the Foucault stuff was weaved in, but it wasn't only that.
right.
But because I looked at, well, you know, I really loved what they were teaching us. They were actually being real, you know, and like this is how we manage to control and move around ideas in society and move people into organizations to make things happen. This is how it's done, like the kind of psychological, philosophical, anthropological sort of breakdown
Yeah.
of how management even is a thing. So that was so interesting, and I was just, it was like blowing my mind all the time. And then they said that they, you know, most of those people in that course were kind of being trained into being consultants, business consultants of some kind, you know, like looking at the organization and
Yeah.
the human resources and, you know, like how can we, you know, make this business work better. So basically it's like reverse engineering, like how can we make a good culture and a good vision for this organization to fulfill their ends. Whereas I went, fuck this. And I ended up becoming like an activist, really into the anarchist social movement. Let's change the world. Let's do something about this. So I found all the, you know, anarchist brothers and sisters in the universe spread around the university, and that's kind of like where I channeled all this. Like now we know how it's done wrong, we need to make it right. And so that's where I ended up with all these beautiful people. But I even ended up living in a yurt for a year because I was like, well, if I'm, you know, going to be the change,
Wow.
I need to live the change. And you know, that was quite hard because when you're partying and having to chop wood and study in a postgraduate degree. So what they let me do, they said, do you want to do a master's? Because I was the only one that did get a first that year. So that, still being an anarchist and like rebelling against them, I did well. And they said, would you like to do a master's? And I was like, only if you let me do my own thing and study anarchists and social movements in the way that we've studied management and business. And they said,
Oh,
yes. So then I did this
right.
whole, you know, I had the rose tinted glasses of like, yeah, this is the way, guys, you know, social change, social movements. It's, you know, like these protesting culture and the do it yourself, you know, I can't even remember all the lingo now, but there was do-it-yourself media. This was all before social media really took off.
Right, right, right.
Um, anyway, I was studying them and I was in these groups, and we have no leaders and there's no hierarchies, and it's like down with the patriarchy and capitalism. And I studied them like properly, like a postgraduate would. And I ended up with my own conclusions being, ah, these are a bit like cults, and there is hidden this is like hidden leadership, and there is serious issues with power and control.
Right.
And
There is still hierarchies within the
yeah,
within a movement that says that there shouldn't be hierarchies. There oddly is hierarchy, and if you are against it, then you're outcast
yeah,
as a blasphemous person.
yeah. And there's lots of rules that are not explicit. So, you know, you find out when you step on the mine that you stepped on something, you're like, I can't believe you did that. You're like, I didn't know.
This is so
I didn't.
offensive. You should never do that again.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was all very amazing to be in it, and then being like, oh, ooh, maybe I was, you know, I didn't look at it this deeply enough. And so it's just, yeah, it was very interesting to see it all. And, you know, when there's hidden leadership, it's the most I learned a lot about leadership because it's the most charismatic, the most vocal and charismatic one that kind of gets the
Yeah.
airtime. And that's some kind of almost a natural law. And there's something magical about leadership if you have that
Yes.
thing. But the most important thing I learned from that was that you need to be accountable to your leadership. If you're going to be a leader, there needs to be accountability, as in
Of
if things
course.
go wrong, you know. So when you don't have a leader and things go wrong, it's like, it wasn't me. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
It's not my fault. I was just a mouthpiece. It's not. It's the whole group's fault. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then there is something also about where we're all going, and we want to collaborate and work together. There's something, there is a good piece out of this, is that when we do have like, okay, well, these people are the leadership, these people are the admin, these people are the human resource people, these, you know, when we kind of structure it in a way, it doesn't have to be a hierarchy and like a pyramid, but it is amazing to understand the roles and the what's the word I'm looking for? I've kind of lost track of where I was going with that. Yeah, just the, oh yeah, creating a shared culture and a shared vision,
Mm.
which is where the whole group is in it together. When someone comes in with the leadership thing and is accountable, but dictates the rules or the vision and the culture, that's where people start not behaving like part of a group or a team. Anyway, so I learned loads out of all that, and that's just like a
Right.
tiny little piece of my life 20 years ago. But it is becoming really interesting to have that lens that I gained from the postgraduate stuff and the
Right. So did you
all
end
that.
up did you end up finishing that study eventually?
Yes.
Or okay.
And it was basically, the study was about the utopian and dystopian use of the human imagination in reimagining a global civil society, something like
Wow.
that.
That must be a fascinating read.
I think it is like a hard read. But yeah, I think that the main conclusions, like the practical conclusion I came to, was tend to your own garden, and that started a whole other thing in my life.
Oh. But
Tending,
that's more of an anti of anarchist, because it's more of a Jordan Peterson kind of idea of, clean your own room first and then, then
yeah,
try to change the world. You're right.
it's actually a French like 17th or 16th century book called Candide, and it is about this guy that travels around Europe like the wandering nomad, and he keeps getting into so much trouble that he's trying to change the world, but he gets caught up by the Spanish Inquisition and some other war and some other thing happened to him, and he's just like, oh, and then he gets home and he just grows a garden, and then all this stuff falls into place for him. That's very simplistic, but
Mm,
tending to your own garden is like, the real change comes from all of us in our own spheres really making a difference. Because I know that when I changed my insides and the way I operate, my daughter noticed, and she was 6. She went, wow, mummy, you're here, and like, what's going on? And noticed it. I saw the instant ripple effect of one person becoming, I don't know if you want to call it clear or at peace or attuned or strong within themselves or whatever it is, the words to describe that shift. It had a
Right.
huge impact on my entire family, like even my backwards, my mum, dad, and that way, and being able to, I don't know, heal those human distortions that happen in family lines, being able to be the one to go, that I don't want that anymore and it's got to stop. It
Right.
works, it affects both directions, which is
I,
beautiful thing.
yeah, I think it's a tremendous human instinct to have some unresolved issues within yourself, and then project it outside and say, this is, everything needs to change so everything will be all right. But actually, what needs to change first is stuff on the inside, right?
Because a lot
Right.
of the anarchists, if you look at it, if you look at, not, let's not call them anarchists, let's call them people that want a revolutionary
Social
protesters.
justice warriors.
Yes,
Would you
them
call
lot.
that? Okay.
I'm sure a lot of them, it maybe has changed a lot since I put my eye to that. But there was a point when I was back in the day, and you could see it was like a lot of people shouting at walls, institutions, angry, which means they're sitting in anger. And
Yeah.
yes, there's a lot to be angry about, but there's ways, if, you know, I always say, if you have the time and energy and the, I don't know, the possibility, the opportunity to change the financial or government's, you know, situations from the inside, go and do it. But if you can't, then make the best of your own garden and what you can create, and make the change come from within, so that your immediate circles feel a total difference too.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Make a difference, not just yourself, but your family and, your neighborhood, not be a nuisance, let's say, to to
yeah.
make a positive difference. Okay, so how did you then end up from doing a master's, what you were doing, to then transitioning? I guess it happened slowly or fast into a more spiritual outlook.
Well, after the degree came me organizing giant raves in a castle, in castles.
Ooh.
I mean, maybe not giant, but big ones anyway. And so I was still quite in that world still. And that's, but then it was, there was a big heartbreaks, which comes into some of what I do now, but there was a big heartbreak and then a lot of fracturing, and then the drugs were not do, because I remember the first few times I ever took drugs as a academic person, it was like, wow, you know, like my brain was making all these amazing connections, and it was just like, what? I was writing poetry and crazy ideas about how the universe works, and it was amazing. But then a few years later, it's like total spiral out of control, and like I had psoriasis head to foot. I had just was a shell of who I am now, kind of thing.
Well, what is for those ignorant like me, what is psoriasis?
It's an autoimmune disease that's
Mm.
affecting skin. So some people might get arthritis, some people might get IBS, stomach stuff, or some people get skin things like maybe dermatitis. I got psoriasis, which is like, so I weakened the lining of my gut basically.
Oh, wow.
And with the amount of, it wasn't so much the amount of drugs, it was more like the lack of sleep, not eating properly, kind of
Malnutrition. Yeah.
just running away and lost all the time and not looking after myself, and some kind of I think I was just a really hurt person, a really lost person, and I just couldn't find my way after this particular heartbreak. And the scrambling of the cultural conditioning, that I was like, yeah, I'm scrambling this on purpose. Part of it was to remember who I am at a kind of spiritual level without having that language. I didn't really get that, but
Right.
like, so this, like, I need to break out the mold, and certain things that I've learned aren't the way. And so yeah, but I went too far. I scrambled even good habits. So I had to kind of relearn everything. And so what happened was, it was like it was a relationship, I think, that was just so bad. It was like toxic, and
Mm.
they were alcoholics. I didn't really realize, and
Oh, okay.
it was an abusive situation, and it was really I was kind of trapped in it. And when it ended, it was awful. And like, I had, like hiding and like, oh, it was just not good. But that moment was like, wow, like I'm done. Like, I do not want these experiences anymore. I actually am a very bright, intelligent person, and I'm failing, like me, my daughter, like my life. Um, I'm not anywhere near where I thought I would be. I remember, laughing with your friends at school, and you're like, you're going to be a this, and I was going to be some sort of multi-millionaire CEO of some giant corporation. Apparently,
Right.
that's what people said of me when I was like 16. And this was not it at all. And I knew something, it was like a deep sense of failure and like, oh God. And then the whole thing of, several not very good relationships. I was like, well, I'm a common denominator in these.
Right.
Hmm. So it was like that moment. And so combine that with seeing energy and seeing stuff going on and still not looking after myself. There was a point where things got really weird. Actually, wait, which comes first? So first is the enough is enough of these relationships. And then I'm going to do something about this healing ability. I could put my hand, I remember my friend hurt her head and I put my hands on and it was like lightnings came out my hands and she felt it too. And she was like, wow,
Mm,
I'd pay you to do that. I was like, really? So I was like, okay, what is this then? So I booked myself on to a Reiki course or something like that.
of
Straight
course.
away, I was there a few days later. And soon after that, I did what I had to do to get that. And then I did another one. And then they asked me to do this sort of life review thing where I had to look at my life, looking at all the things that might be stuck, shame, guilt,
Yep.
hurt, pain, lack of voice, all the stuff. And so I took that so seriously. And around this time, I can't remember if it comes before, I think this is after I started doing Reiki, but I actually still wasn't out of my destructive looping. So it was like I knew I had to stop, but I kept getting sucked into this whole party world. And I was like,
Mm.
guys, I'm leaving. And people would be like, just one last time, like, oh. Oh, so it was that in between, I'm not trying to break free and it's
Mm.
hard. And several things happened. So basically I've already said that I kind of had no energetic protection left. I kind of scrambled the thing. I had no immune system inside or outside. And then I'm starting to learn magical tools. And this is something I kind of teach people now is like, you know, having magic or gifts is an honor. And it's also a great responsibility. And if you ask for it to be better or bigger, comes with a responsibility to honor it and to value it. And I had to learn to switch on and off like my energy eyes because it was scary and then not being used appropriately. So
Right.
at this point, when I'm in between the old life and the new one,
Mm.
uh, I was being attacked by entities every night.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Is that the
I
sleep paralysis? Is that what happens when people have sleep paralysis? Is that the entities attacking them, you would
No,
say?
not necessarily. So for me, the sleep paralysis was kind of part of the story, but it wasn't only from sleep paralysis. But yeah, I wouldn't say everyone's sleep paralysis is that because often it
Okay.
can be biochemical, and
Right.
it can also be on a more meta level, like fear and fear of violation in the system. So there's like a fear response happening.
Mm.
So the body can't rest and relax. But what was happening to me was more of, um, I call it a spirit-led shamanic initiation. If you think about magical people in ancient tribes, they would be born and be like, ah, there's the magic one. And then they would be brought up into being like the healer of the village or something.
Yeah.
It's a very different path. And then here it's like, go to school, put the uniform on and like, you kind of lose your magical self. And that's kind of what I think I was trying to break out of the Western mold to find my magical self again. Because what happened that few years of awakening to the magical stuff, the healing world, I saw all my faces, thousands of faces of me at different times but always as a healer or shaman, or it was, but from every culture you could think of. And
Wow. As like a past lives.
yeah, like,
Oh, wow.
and I
That's
wasn't the only one that
interesting.
saw it as well. I was doing breath work with a woman around that time, and I'd seen it and not told anyone. And we did a eye staring breath work together. And she said, "Oh wow, I saw your Egyptian phase, Indian phase, West Viking phase, da 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 da, and you all had headdresses and things on." I was like, "Wow, okay." I didn't see the regalia. I just saw the features changing, slightly morphing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw a lot of the faces. But the entity thing, or the spirit-led shamanic initiation was, I was being trained without having a teacher or a tribe or something showing me how to do the things. And what I saw was that lots of challenges were being put in front of me. So
Mm.
it wasn't so much how would you put it, like, oh, I'm a victim, which is what it felt like. I'm like, I'm being
Right.
attacked all the time. And then that was the first response, was like, shit, and what's happening, and then I don't like it. And then I was like, no. I was like, I put my staff down and was like, I'm not having this. This is not cool. So I started trying to figure out what to do with this. It manifests as sleep paralysis, but also things coming into the room, things trying to rape me often.
What, like,
Um,
entity trying to rape you?
yeah, not trying, actually doing it.
Wow.
And I
How does that, like, does that look like uh manifest physically, or that, like, you can tell it's you can't see, but it's like it's a spirit that's there, or you can see it?
Well, there's quite a lot of episodes of this, but one or two of them were just me without the entity thing, but me going into sleep paralysis and learning how to control it. So not to be afraid. And then
Mm.
breathing, going like, relax, 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 doing the whole look at my hands in the day, and realizing, oh, I'm actually asleep, not
Right, right,
awake.
right.
And then looking at the room going, there's one thing different, I'm actually awake in the dream. And then trying to navigate through and being able to go through ceilings and actually seeing all, like, the plasterboard and the paint and the insulation, and then out the other end.
Oh,
And I
astral projection, kind of.
so that was often, if I could get through the paralysis, I could go
Oh,
travel.
wow.
So
That's
then,
crazy.
yeah. And then I was at a family member's house in a village I had never really been to before. And I was there the first night. I think it was a particularly, I was like coming down from years of abuse to myself, and heartbreak, and also, so I was like, my body was in a state. And I stayed with them a few days, and then I had this experience of going through the ceiling, and I went flying through the village and then out of the village, and then I saw some red flowers, and then I saw like a phone box, and then I saw like a motorway, and I just saw these things in order. And then I woke up the next day and they said, oh, do you want to take the dog for a walk? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I took the dog, and I was like, this looks familiar. And so I know for a fact that my spirit energy or consciousness left my body and had a little journey in the village and beyond. And then I saw all the same things, the poppy flower, the red flowers, and the motorway. And I'd
Mm.
never been there. So I was like, okay, well, this is another tick on the evidence list of, you can have cognizance when you're out of your body in a dream
Right,
state.
right.
So that's how kind of my whole life of having energy eyes and stuff like that. It's not me reading in a book and going, oh, I want to see that. It's more like, okay, I've seen that. I've seen it more than once. What might that be? And then maybe someone might say, oh, I've heard of that, or I might read it somewhere. And then I'm like, okay, so it is really a thing. It's not me just losing the plot.
Right.
um,
How did
so
you
the
then manage with entities that attacked you? That's to me is fascinating.
So then I come to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm taking control of the paralysis. I'm learning to breathe through it. And this is an interesting thing, because I heard a song, like an old 70s psychedelic rock, kind of psychedelic music stuff. And I was like, I know that noise that they're playing. And when I would be able to instead of the paralysis and trying to shock myself awake or try and wake up or be like, shit, I'm going to get attacked. Something's coming up the stairs and I need to wake up.
Right.
I would relax and just go with it. Just breathe, relax, kind of no fear, and just go, oh, whatever, to the thing, just like, whatever. They don't like that. They don't like being ignored or not being, if you're afraid, that's what they're kind of looking for, I think.
They feed off of it. Yeah.
So then I'm like, whatever. And then I can get through to this crazy noise happens in my ears. And I actually woken up a few times where it hurt. Like the noise from whatever was happening was like, ow, my ears are sore. But it would be like a flapping kind of helicopter noise, like, and then suddenly after a while, like and then you're in the astral dream stuff moving around. And that's where I was able to battle the things. So I went into, basically, I think it's called astral battle.
Wow.
And I kind of was like, it happened so many times that I could try, a bit like Groundhog Day. I was like, oh, I'll try. Well, fear and surrender didn't work, so I'll just let you do it. It didn't really work. That wasn't the key. And it was almost like, it felt like a video game. Like I have to find my way out.
Wow.
The test, there's a test here and it's an initiation and I'm actually homing in my skills of how to work with an energy coming at you. So it's kind of like a martial arts training, but in that other side.
Wow.
And there's things coming at you and you're learning like, okay, so I called it like a spiritual like the perfect equation of you on a tightrope with an opponent, it's like finding your power, but without being an ego kind of like, yeah, I'm so powerful. It's more like a really concentrating, not being too excited, not being too fearful. It was kind of like finding that sweet spot. And then it was like a reclaiming of me. All these pieces or whatever was going on, I started reclaiming big parts of who I am and being like, I'm not having this. I don't want this in my life. Go away. But yeah, I'd left myself very wide open and I'm a bright light. And so a lot of these things are like, whoa, shiny thing with no protection.
Oh yeah, let's attack it. Pile on.
Yeah. And they can affect your behavior and your needs and wants and how your desires. They can affect desire, like, oh, right. Go and do that. I want those. Kind of, I think a lot of weird promiscuity and stuff like that can.
So this was all happening inside your dream, and every night you were like fighting, like a fight training.
Yeah, and then things kind of there was all sorts of things like, I fought these tubes that were trying to attach to me. They came along quite a lot. And then I found, I fought till the death sort of thing. And then I landed on my bed, like, and then right in front of me was this giant, like, being with a small head and lots of kind of rags and long finger things going.
Like an alien?
No, like, no. Well, I actually saw an artist picture a couple of years ago, which reminded me of the nervous system, but with a head on it. So it was almost like a giant nervous system, maybe an alien, wow. But it was maybe more like a Pleiadian, if I think now what it might be. But basically it was just saying, well done, and started knitting me back together again from battle, like a bit of surgery. And she was
it's actually said, well done. Wait, was this in a dream or this is, you see this in your...
I'm in my world, I'm awake and I'm experiencing things, but I wouldn't see them if I was awake, but I'm awake in the dream. I'm moving around.
Right.
So I land out of fight mode into being fixed mode. And another time, at this point, I mean, life has changed a lot since then, and I'll have to explain what happened after that. Otherwise it just sounds like I'm still there and I'm not.
So what happens after that, after you get knitted back together?
Just wake up and then another episode. And there was another one where I opened my eyes and I was like, okay, I just checked the light switch, checked my hands. I'm like, okay, I'm asleep but awake. And there was a Anubis. And I didn't know what Anubis was, actually. I had to look up.
I still don't know. What is Anubis?
Anubis is the god of the underworld in Egyptian. He's in all the hieroglyphs. He's like a jackal with a human body.
Oh.
Like a dog thing with a human body. And he was stood at the foot of my bed breathing. I could see his chest, leathery chest, sort of moving. And I was like, hello. And I didn't know what it was. And you have to then go like, wow, okay. So I don't necessarily think Anubis was there and I'm some sort of Egyptian thingy. I just think that whatever, archetypal symbology, my body will try and interpret that in a certain way. And I just saw it as like, I've traveled kind of up and down life and rebirth cycles. He takes, so it was like a little tick, well done. And I just happened to be able to see that stuff.
Right.
So there's just, lots of these episodes. And then combined with so Reiki training, enough is enough of the crap relationships. I need to sort my life out. I need to pull stuff together. And I'm actually fed up of fighting entities now. I think I'm in a good place. And I kind of just, I did a whole, it was like a military operation in discipline. I was like, right, that's it. There was a way.
Yeah.
There was a reason that happened. I fell down the last time I ever took drugs, which was now 10 years ago. So it was like that last time someone was like, come on, one last time. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I really hurt myself. I mean, really, I could have killed myself. I was very lucky that I was like rubber when it happened. And that was the biggest wake-up call ever, because my daughter could have had no mum. I mean, just to be clear with anyone listening, that my daughter was away a lot because we shared with her dad. So when she was away, right, I'd be like, ah! and then when she was there,
party mode, right.
I was a great mom in between. But that was the wake-up call. Like, and I heard all sorts of things speaking to me when the chiropractor was trying to put me back together again. Like, are you listening now, and all this stuff. And I was like, yes, I am. So that all of that combined meant that I became a hermit. I decided, like, I have to just control, alt, delete the entire past of my of like what my life looks like now. Is like, I can't carry on. I cannot. And I think I cried for months as I did this life review work. I was like, every day, I actually did, it's interesting because I hardly ever talk about this, but I chose to have a tarot, like major arcana. The tarot cards? Yeah, the major arcana, like the 0 to 21. And I chose one card a day to learn about them, but it really affects your energy when you pick a big archetypal thing like that, and you're studying it. It becomes, your life becomes it as much as, like, becomes the card, and the card becomes life. But I was doing that, and I was also clearing through the body. I had like a sequence of about 2 hours that I would do every day. And I did it for 21 days. And then I started again, and I did another 21 days. And then I did another 21 days because I wasn't done. And I think I cried most of that time. And it was really, really coming to the roots of all the psychological pain, emotional pain, mental pain, like really coming to terms with all the times I'd hurt people or they'd hurt me. So much forgiveness for myself and others. It was like, all the anxiety and paranoia and all the weirdness that I'd experienced and lostness, like I came back. It was hardcore. It was really hardcore. And I don't think many people put themselves through that sort of thing. And at the end of it, I realized, okay, I've done amazing. I'm a new person. But there's some things that aren't clear. And I realized I still don't have any energetic protection from blowing it apart. I also have these negative thought patterns that are nasty, like not to me, nasty to me. And I recognized that they were ancestral. I'd recognize the voice or the pattern in a way. It was like an imprint, ancestral chatter, da, 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 da. And because I had no protection, it's like louder. No resilience. There was no resilience really. And I heard about this thing called AuraTransformation, and I was like, what is it? And I'm learning magic and playing with energy all the time. It sounded like really cool. It was like, I think, it says something like the most powerful energetic treatment in the universe. And I was like, I want to do it. And I read about it, and I was like, holy moly, that is everything that I need right now. Like, I need this. And I got on train.
What is it then? Is it like a changing, like, let's say, I don't think you can see the auras through a computer screen, but let's say my aura is damaged. So you would be like, oh, you need to do some meditation, or is it one-on-one like kind of session?
It's a basically an energetic activation of some sort. So, I mean, I can do a very brief introduction history of aura
Okay,
transformation. I'll just will say that I haven't been able to do any for a year because of the pandemic, and I actually teach. I'm like an international instructor, so I teach people how to do this now, which
cool.
is amazing. But
But you need to do
yeah,
it in person, obviously, because
it
you
has to be
can't.
perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what it is not just fixing what is broken, it's actually dissolving completely what we call the old aura and integrating a brand new crystalline structured aura.
Hmm.
So there is a phenomena of the children of today, and this is all over the world, different consciousness type people have mentioned it, like, oh, the children of crystal and indigo children, and it's different. And it is different. They have they have a different organizational structure to their energy field, and how the spirit energy and the physical body interact is very different to what we've grown up with.
Okay.
And but the old aura, I'm sure, used to work quite well, maybe 26,000 years ago, but over time it's become overpopulated, a bit like, you know, when your computer gets viruses and there's loads of them and something's like they've taken over and you have to
Right.
keep updating. So it's like the old aura has become, I'd say like 80%, maybe even like 89% of adults today hardly have any more protection left. Partly diet, partly toxins, partly fear, partly
Really?
stress.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just
So
like,
how can you notice, like when you see somebody's aura, that they're you see that it just shot. There's no protection, and it's kind of the colors are bland.
yes, bland, the light's gone out in the eyes.
Mm,
They might mention that they feel absolutely shattered at the end of the day, or that spiritual people might say they have to put protection on every day, they have to do meditation for hours, they have to do the chakra thing just to be okay to go to work, and then they have to do it all over again when they get back. Energy
mm,
can drop very quickly. They're very affected and overwhelmed by outside energies. Oh, I've gone all blurry.
it
Might
happens.
um, they feel overwhelmed by their children. They have skin conditions, ringing
Yeah.
in the ear.
Hmm.
But just like people that have no boundaries and no protection in their energy field. So yeah, there's a lot of things it's good for. It's the cherry on the top for spiritual people that maybe have done a lot of work. It's like clearing those just last bits of those ancestral things that were stuck. So the old aura, what we call the old aura, has this astral body where that connects you to, it's almost like, I call it the universal plug socket for entities, ancestral energies, how we connect to each other, the karmic ties. So
Mm,
all these things are plugged into the old aura. And that's kind of when there isn't hardly any aura left or no protection, it can be overwhelming, like those things attacking me, like the ancestral imprint, negative voices in the head, all that stuff. It was just like, oh, too noisy and too much, and just like, ah.
right.
And then I had the aura transformation, and I mean, it was instant. I mean, it takes a bit of walking around. You're like, what's different, like. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh my god, the next day I was on the train back, and I was looking out, and I was like, there's no noise, there's no chatter, there's no negative nah, your shit all day long. uh, it's
Yeah,
like,
most people have that. Yeah.
it's quiet, and it's just wow. And then suddenly all this it was like I mean, part of the aura transformation for everyone is that it helps you focus all your, because having an aura transformation, we bring your spirit energy into your body. So we dissolve the old aura,
Mm,
integrate the new aura, and that includes having your spirit energy in your body, not hanging above you going, what are you doing? It's
right.
like in the body, so that the spirit energy is looking at you, like you're very bright in the eyes. But when your spirit energy is touching earth through your body, it's much easier to manifest reality or make things happen, like your dharma, like the things you're supposed to be doing. When
Right.
you're floating out of your body or fragmented, it's very hard to make things happen.
So you're saying when somebody's not grounded, then it's it's hard to do anything because there's no actual connection to the earth, and
Yeah.
I've known some people that have gone manic for periods of time, and I would say in almost every case has been because of not being grounded and focusing on the higher spiritual ideas, which is good, but not having any grounding, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's some breakdown, you
Yeah.
know.
It's the whole thing that if all the children born have this thing, and then some of us are able to get there, a lot of it is ascend in, not out. It's not about going, oh, gurus and angels and like stuff out there and planets and like I'm
Yeah,
channeling. Like
yeah.
actually no, like get in, be here, make things happen for real right now. Be here fully and be in your body. And a lot of people just don't want to be in their body. And I'm not surprised. Like I just did not want to be in my old aura. I was like, this is horrible. And so so being in my body, like almost, overnight, I'm like, wow. And it does take time. I had a lot of clearing. It kind of, as your spirit energy comes into the body, it's lifting up all the stuff that does not want to be in there. And I'm so
Mm.
lucky. I'm so lucky that I did that 9 months of military, emotional
Oh,
clearing.
that was nine
But
months. Wow.
that was
Cool.
before. And then,
Yeah, yeah.
so, but there was still more. It was like the real, like the physical side of that, where that was left still in my body.
Yeah.
And at the time, that's the problem, is people can clear their consciousness and their emotional body and all that and be like, yeah, this is where I'm going. But the body's like, no, I'm still holding on to that, which is where all my kinesiology work comes in.
Right, right, right. Let's talk about kinesiology.
Yeah.
So is it because sometimes I confuse kinesiology with muscle testing. So muscle testing is like this, or any other way you do. Some people do like this, the O-ring
Yeah, that's
method.
self-testing. That's
Yeah.
self-testing. But before pandemic time, I was doing online kinesiology because I traveled the world with AuraTransformation. I brought it to many places, but people wanted to work with me online anyway, so I started studying kinesiology. It took 3 years or so, and it's so in
Wow.
depth. It was like a degree. It was like, we did anatomy, trauma, we did nutrition. It was proper. We actually have a proper body, institutional body that protects us as kinesiologists. So we're like established. It's
Right.
like a
This is
real,
like a medical thing almost.
yeah, like um I'm signed under the Kinesiology Foundation and the British Association of Alternative Medicine. So
Okay.
that's cool. Yeah. So it was a proper study. You have to tick a lot of boxes and lots of case studies and all that. So I was really grateful for this. I recommend that, proper training to most healers, like get that grounding and get that experience in and learn
Yeah.
what your power and your magic is. I was really grateful for that. It was amazing. But the kinesiology when you're in person is like we're testing someone's arm, like the
Yeah.
practitioner is testing an arm or 2 arms, and you can feel that in the body. But when you're doing it online, yes, I do use my finger, but some people use a pendulum. I'm not big on the pendulum, but yeah, I use my hand myself. And a lot of people are like, well, how can you do kinesiology online? And it's actually, I have a lovely story from a friend who had sessions in person. She was like, I'm never doing online. That's ridiculous. How does it even work? And
Right.
she had a very powerful session because I created something called Heart Retrieval. And we got halfway through and then I had to leave because it was the end of time. And so I said, we'll have to finish online. And she was like, no. And I'm like, we're going to have to. And so she said yes in the end. And then we did the rest of the work online. And she was like, you know what? I actually prefer it online. And I was like, can you explain? And now I really actually appreciate the power of doing this online, is because I have a big energy. And when I'm helping, aura transforming or helping someone bring part of their fragmented self back, or like clearing something, I have a very strong energy and you can feel me in the room. Whereas
Right.
when someone's on their own in their room on their own, and I'm telling them I'm there holding the space and can help do all the same things, but because I'm not in the room, they can feel their own energy. And then when they're moving things themselves, they feel more empowerment.
So they're not as like overwhelmed by your energy, let's say. if
There's
for
that,
lack of a
but
better term.
I don't think it's so much that. I think it's more that even when I'm in the room, they're doing it themselves. They're bringing
Yep.
back their own parts. I'm
Right.
helping the force kind of thing. Like, yes, let's do this, and they might feel like empowered by me being there. But when I'm in a different side of the country or the world, then they're actually. It's more about creating a sense of power in themselves. Like, oh wow, I can do this. Like I just pulled that back into my body on my own. It wasn't because I went to see a practitioner. So
Right.
I see the kind of teach a man how to fish rather than just give him a fish kind of
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the kinesiology has been amazing. And the reason why I started kinesiology was that because AuraTransformation isn't recognized by some big foundation or school, some places wouldn't let me work, like yoga studios and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a kinesiology session, course, and then I can do whatever I want with that. Because I could do AuraTransformation, actually, I lie. I could do AuraTransformation, but I couldn't do my own intuitive healing work, which I was doing on the side as well.
Mm-hmm.
I need a certificate. So I did kinesiology, and then I was like, oh, I can do what I want with, you can make your own protocols and all that.
Right. Right. Right.
In the end, I just did the whole thing because it was so amazing. I studied with the Creative Kinesiology School, and how I see it is that a lot of kinesiology is very much like, how does this muscle work, and for sports therapy and all that.
Yes. Yes. That's the
And
medical one, right?
yeah, and this one has a bit of that, but it's actually looking at the human from a 360 entire universe perspective. Like every person has different links to the universe and their history and time and their body, and we can kind of tap into all those things. Like
Mm.
where I'm sat now, I have at my fingertips like loads of folders and files and information and books and cards and vibrational essences that we can kind of tap into to get information. And
Mm-hmm.
how I see the kinesiology is like where I like to see it as like we're Sherlock Holmes and a wizard tracking alongside the story, trying to figure out like what's through that door, and why is this blockage in life happening, whatever it might be, and getting to the exact bullseye of when it started, what was happening, and why. Like go back to the original imprint of this thing that might have had 10,000 iterations since, but let's go to the first one, and then if you clear there, it just collapses all of those instances
Hmm.
or clear. So it's
Are you,
very
are you familiar with the body talk?
no.
Body talk uses also it asks first permission, and then it has like you use a chart. So it's like where's the problem in the body? It has like 6 different departments, and then it's like here, and then they go on, then it branches. Like it's like a program basically that they use, that the practitioners need to memorize, or it's on the wall oftentimes in the practitioner, and then they through muscle testing, they actually muscle test the client while they're laying on the table, usually
Yeah.
raising their hand or something. I couldn't figure out exactly how they can tell if they get a yes or no, but they can tell. And then it sounds like you're using a similar method, because are you like honing down what needs to be worked on basically?
Well, we have from studying that, maybe I've slightly created my own, but we have a general kind of protocol, if you like. So first it's talking about what's going on, what's real, and then we find a few statements, simple things like I'm grounded. I don't feel very grounded. I'm all over the place. I'm clumsy.
Mm.
I'm grounded is the statement. Obviously, they can get a lot more complicated and interesting, like, I'm visible to the right clients or something, it could be all sorts of things. And so we then test the statement, say the statement, what does your body do? And then we find out what the body does in relation to that. So we check all these body systems, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual systems. We check the 3 brains, the gut level, the heart level, the brain level.
The 3
We check,
brains. What are the 3
yeah,
brains?
so the head brain, conscious thought head brain, the heart brain, the intelligence of the heart, the gut brain, and the unconscious. So like the unconscious emotional content that broadcasts from the unconscious through the gut,
Oh
which
shit.
people. When someone's like, I'm so happy and confident, and you're like, they don't doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, what about my gut? My gut is shot.
So yeah, and then we check the nervous system, the immune system, the thymus, the hormone system. We check the ancestral imprints, spiritual imprints. We check so many things. We check all these layers. So that takes not very long. It's like da 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 da, check check check, and then we go, okay, I've got a good picture of what's happening here. It looks like something's happened with your nerve. You know, your nervous system is in flight mode or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we can start muscle testing. Like, what's the story? What do we need to know? What's happened? When did it happen? And then we build like kind of a story or picture of what's happening, and then we find out. So what makes creative kinesiology may be a bit different to other schools is that we have like over 80 different modalities and information and techniques to fall into, to find out what we need to do for what. Everything from how the brain works, from Native American medicine wheels to ancient Lemurian consciousness technology to Chinese medicine, to psychotherapy and character structures and chakra stuff and ancestral stuff. It's just crazy. There's so much in
Wow.
these books. We have these amazing files, which is like the entire human experience in a book. It's amazing. So we have like clues, you know, you just go there and you're like, what's this about? What does it mean to you? And we build the conversation. So that's also different to some kinesiology in that we're always discussing like, what does this mean? Does this link into the story? So we give it
Right.
back to,
So there's a lot of psychology as well, the interaction with the client and getting the information from them as well, not just through muscle testing.
Yeah, the muscle testing is just the yes and the no. And is it integrated? Because the most important thing, if I think that's important to say, when you want to change yourself or something happening, it's all right to change it consciously, emotionally. You know, I've said this a few times, but the body needs to get it. And that's why you can go on a retreat and be like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, I'm back to the thing again.
Or you say, but the body has not got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is where you go where the body speaks and the body never lies. So that's why a lot of the kinesiology that I think most kinesiology schools have a foundation in touch for health, which is basically Chinese medicine, the meridian and muscle. So you can basically speak to the body directly. So we find the energy thing that needs to shift or the emotional thing, but then we make sure the body gets it. So that's how it really works.
That's the title of that John Diamond book, Your Body Doesn't Lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do the kinesiology, the aura thing, and do you do Reiki? Do you do Reiki still?
No. So this is a controversial thing about AuraTransformation is when you dissolve the old aura, old ways of healing aren't going to work or don't feel good or not comfortable. And Reiki is amazing for people in the old aura. It's not necessarily going to change your deep-seated and rooted issues with life and relating, but it's good to patch up parts of the aura that need a bit of healing, but it doesn't necessarily fix the tear. So, you know, it depends on the Reiki person as well. Some are very powerful, but Reiki people are amazing for people in what we call the old aura. So it's like, I
can see the controversy. Yeah. Okay.
It's because we dissolve the old aura, so there's not going to be the thing, you know, to work on.
So there needs to be an upgrade Reiki. Then this would be highly controversial. That would work on the new aura.
That is the upgrade. Yeah, that is the upgrade. And also the other controversial piece is that the 7 chakras merge into one big heart chakra, which pisses people off so much.
Oh, wow.
But
how does that work?
It's just the merging, not in the physical body, but in the aura, the merging of all of the focal point and the energy of that energetic system is in one big heart chakra. And you can really feel it happening during and after. But
so when you do, so just to be clear, so when you do the aura, your aura thing, then it unifies the chakras into one, where everything's in the heart chakra.
Yeah. the aura almost is like one big heart chakra in a way. So I actually went like, 6 years later to Joe Dispenza week-long thing,
Yep.
intensive, and I hadn't really known his work before, but part of the reason we went was because we were hoping we could get tested and see the difference. We were like, let's go to Mexico and let's do this thing. And it was just a great experience, but people saw something different with me. I had several people in front, because my friend was like, oh, this oral transformation stuff, it hurts me, and he was like, we were arguing like for hours about this thing.
Oh, you
And
mean
then,
it hurts me like intellectually having to
yeah,
argue? Okay,
yeah,
get it.
yeah. As in, no, just the fact that I say this often with energy work and energy schools, we're trying to put a flag in a piece of consciousness and energy and call it something, and then people on different modalities are calling the same thing something different. So that's kind of where the arguments happen. It's like, no,
Right.
but I call it the astral, but that's my etheric thing. Oh,
Got it.
so anyway, from the experience of the Joe Dispenza thing, there was this amazing guy that said, there's something very different about you. When you walk in a room, people turn around, and there's something very different about how your energy is structured, and there's something different about your heart, and there's something crystalline about your aura. And I was like, ha! I was like telling my friends, see, I know it's a real thing. And there's just like little moments like that people, notice or see it or feel it. So it's just like nice bit of validation that, I'm not totally nuts and
Wow.
doing all this stuff.
So this was a so the Joe Dispenza thing had a tester that would did
They
they
didn't do
all
it.
did they also have like a thing that there's supposedly a machine that can take photographs of the aura?
Yeah, but the thing is that because this AuraTransformation is a Danish healing modality, and they've actually done. It was even on TV of having taken photos of the aura, but the problem is that the new aura, the crystal aura, is twice the size of the old aura, so it doesn't really show up on the pictures, and it just looks like the person has nothing. It's like, so it doesn't really
Oh
work.
wow.
It's not so much about the picture, it's more about the frequency in the body. There's an increase of energy, and these people talk about Heelys all the time.
No.
Healy, it's like this new frequency device everyone's talking about at the moment, and people have been asking me like, wow, like the aura transform people, it comes up on the Healy like, oh, they have a lot more energy here, and here, and not there, which is exactly what the process of the thing is.
Okay.
But yeah, so to leave the aura transformation thing aside, because I've not even been able to do that, and for years I have been building up my own things and then never having time to put them out. And then this year with the pandemic is been like the year of all of my backed up stuff coming out all at once, or bit by one after the other. So I'm super passionate and loving the Visibility Gateway, which is basically finishing schools for wizards and witches. I don't really call it that, but that's kind of what it's like. It's teaching confidence on camera, magical marketing, and wealth frequency stuff to healers and wellness practitioners that are terrified of being on camera, and talking about their work, even talking about their work, because healers have a deep history of being, burnt at the stake.
Prosecuted, yeah, and in the past, right?
Yeah. So we're doing kinesiology as a group to clear, like all these people, powerful, magical people clearing ancient stories is really amazing to be part of. But then I'm also teaching them all this, actual marketing, and let's make your business actually happen. Let's ground. You've traveled around and adventured and been to the planets and channeled stuff, and now you've got to make a business happen to support you.
Right.
And
I imagine that's popular because a lot of people at the end of the day, they want to make a living as well. I mean, your art and healing is great, but if you can make a living off of it, you have to go back to the factory or working at Starbucks or
yeah,
whatever, which is not what they would
yeah,
want.
that hurts me to think that people with healing abilities that have a calling, a deep remembering, they've done this 1,000 times before, are afraid of being visible with their skills and their gifts. So therefore it's on the side, or, oh, it didn't quite work, or I have to work in the cafe or whatever. And I find that drives me crazy. So I really want to help people make a real proper business. So there's a lot of conversations around powerful communication. How can you speak about what it is you do without mentioning auras in the fifth dimension? You know, like let's just forget
Right.
about this.
I've
So
heard that before in this podcast. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth,
yeah,
10th
uh,
dimension. I don't
and it
know
just
about it.
it's, it switches people off, and it's more like if you can say, look, do you struggle walking into a room and then feel very tired after an event of groups of people? Yes. Okay, well then maybe you have some issue with the boundary between you and the world with your energies, so we can work with that. People are like, that's an idea I hadn't thought of. If you say your third dimensional aura is no more functioning in the matrix, it's not gonna, people are like, so it's like, how can we get the healers to make their language human and understand what they're doing? It's like, you're gonna have to sit down and think about this. And
Yeah.
so I love doing that. That's like a big passion thing. And then because of the kinesiology, and I can work in this group setting, I've had to call my kinesiology something different because I'm being a bit, so I call it leap kinesiology, which is my group kinesiology work. So I've had to name it separate because they didn't train me to do group work, so they don't want their name involved in that, which is
Oh,
fair
yeah.
enough.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So leap kinesiology. And then I do something called Love Again, the Heart Retrieval program.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like a,
Let's talk about that.
yeah,
So if somebody, and it's happened to me, it's happened to other people, where you get really attached to that person and that person leaves, or there's something goes wrong, and then it ends. It has to
yeah,
end. So and then people have a hard time getting over that heartbreak.
yeah,
So you help. So you have a system where you help people get through that, basically.
yes. But
Hmm.
it's become so much bigger than what it was originally. So to start, where it came from was that I had this big heartbreak when I was in my 20s. So when I was living in that bender and there was all the craziness, there was this big love story, and when it was pulled apart at its height, and it was like Romeo and Juliet or something, and it wrenched me to pieces. And 13 years later there was still pain there, and I'm like, what
Oh,
the hell?
man.
You know, lots of stuff happened in between, and I never saw him again. We never spoke again. But I was like, I don't know if I heard his name or something was mentioned, it would be like, oh, like really painful and tears down my face. And I'm like, this is really unusual and I don't understand. And then I happened to move closer, and we actually met up after 13 years, and we talked about it, and he went, it's been the same for me. And I'm like, what? I did not expect that at all.
Hmm.
So yeah, so then I was like, that's not cool. So after meeting him, it kind of made it's like when the mind can understand something, it makes it easier to work with. And I have all these tools, so I was able to like start looking. I just thought I would just never have that kind of love again, and it was like this big thing. And then actually I found out from exploring that our heart threads were all tangled up and attached, and that's like a phenomenon of what can happen. So some people, often it might be, I don't know, could be past life, I guess, or maybe their first love. And even though they're married 20 years, they still remember this person, or, there's like
Yeah.
something that's really still alive. So I managed to start pulling the heart threads back from this person that night after having met up with them. And it was intense. It was like another kind of like as intense as the AuraTransformation, but in a different way. It was like reclaiming all of the puppy love, all of the innocence, and then reclaiming a huge chunk of my heart. And when that came back in, part of me could see that all the other relationships I'd had in those 13 years, like after this person, that I could only give them like this little piece of my heart, and it was all
Mm.
messy. It was destructive relationships. It was terrible, bad choices, and etc.
Is
And
it
that all made
like is it like a part of you was with him, and a part of him was in you, basically, the heart.
yeah. Well, how I saw it was that these fibers that connect us to people can be healthy, but also it kind of got stuck. And I think part of it was the trauma of how the separation happened, and it kind of just like, it's like a trauma response that it loops. I'm not sure exactly what it means, and I don't want to romanticize it because
Yeah.
I've managed to move on. I don't want to be like, yes, it was, some past life for, I don't know. It's my spirit, mate. I don't want to go in that language. But all I know is that it felt so good to have all those parts of me back that were attached over there. And he tried to get rid of me all this time as well, and it wasn't working. He tried all sorts of stuff. And so when this started happening, it affected us both like that. And we saw each other maybe once or twice just to clear up. And he was like, this is phenomenal. Thank you so much. It's like giving him his life back in a way, and mine as well.
Did
And
he
then
feel it right away, by the way? Did he feel it?
I didn't speak to him the first couple of weeks, and we saw each other 2 months later. And, during that 6 months where we were in touch, it was a phenomenal change for both of us. Like, as if we couldn't even remember what had happened almost, like, oh.
Yeah.
And it was just like freedom, He even wrote to me saying, I just want you to know, like, the courage that you've displayed in working through this, and want to let you know, like, thank you, and want to let you know that you're free now, and that I'm free, and it's amazing. And I was like, ah. And then it just meant that I felt, well, first of all, I felt like all the lights had been switched on. I was just like like fire was on, and I was like, so much energy in my body, and also felt ready to actually be in true relationship with people, not just like give a tiny bit left, and like just, yeah, not in longing and sadness. It was amazing. So then I started working on people, like practicing, like, okay, well, let's see if you have heart threads. What does it look like? And I found out that, so what you were talking about when people struggle with heartbreak, I would say it's rare that it's a lot heart to heart like that, stuck. That's kind of a rare thing. The more common thing is that your heart threads are stuck to
solar plexus.
Story. Stuck to the story about the relationship and what happened. Like, he did this and he did that, and I felt abandoned and I was rejected. So that's the core wound, and those core wounds go right back to childhood and family imprinting from early days or school times, or just early imprinting and attachment and defenses and all that kind of stuff. So what I do in the heart retrieval is we go through the list of all the heart stories, which is amazing. Like, I get to hear everyone's love stories from day one, like the beginning to the end. And we actually explore each one with kinesiology. Like, what was that link? What does it look like? Was it heart to heart, or was it heart to story? Is that linked to childhood stuff, or is it actually right that because of that relationship? And you find out so much about yourself.
You can ask about past lives as well. You could.
Yeah. And then we is that clear? A lot of them are like, oh, there is nothing there, which is great. That means it was a clean break, and like, bye, thank you very much. It's not the ideal is to not have your heart threads attached to other people. And a lot of people come, I think the winner had 100% of their heart threads was out. And that's people that give, but they're kind of giving because they want, that's their way of getting love or being validated or seen. So that's also not healthy in its own way.
Or kind of codependent, or not really validating themselves, seeking validation in other people, seeking love in other people. But yeah.
So what I've done is, instead of these awesome one-to-ones, where people reclaim their heart threads, I've created a 6-week mapping journey. I call it mapping your inner landscape. So I'm not just teaching them, I'm not giving them a fish, give your heart threads back. I'm showing you how to recognize when you've thrown them out there and how to pull them back. So we do a heart retrieval as a group, but that's quite intense in itself. But we're also mapping all these areas of your consciousness that you can use forever to heal from heartbreak. And I've had to, this is all the places I've kind of mapped and done for myself over a 10-year period. Like that life review where I cried and cried and cried, that was me creating maps of how to clear from shame and guilt, or forgiveness, compassion, grief, all these things, working with the inner child. So in the course, we do heart retrieval, but we're looking at how to avoid throwing your heart threads around, how to avoid codependence, and heal from deep core wounding. So it's quite, it's very different to the visibility gateway, but So what I've been doing this year is really, I mean, it must look quite intense to people out there that are like, she's put out another thing. But
But
for
it's
me,
good.
it's like,
It's good as long as it helps people and you're
yeah,
producing stuff that is of value to people. I think it's more power to you.
yeah. But I think it'll slow down. This intense creation is going to slow down, and I'll just keep working with the things I've made. But it's like I've got a few more to come. So one went out yesterday called the Money Gateway, which is not a course. It's just the kinesiology, weekly kinesiology to heal and work with your money story. Like just blow the lid
Hmm.
off, you know, false beliefs around money, or how healers and people have okay, well, we'll just need money this week, but not when I'm old, or my children don't need money when I'm dead either. It's like, let's stop being a little bit more long
Right.
term and a bit more grounded about the money thing, because everyone kind of needs it at the moment.
Right.
And yeah, so that's like the visibility gateway does, go into money and selling like for a couple of weeks, but this is just about your money story and limiting beliefs around money. There can be so many weird ones, but they can stop you being successful. They can create procrastination and lack of action because your body doesn't want you to have money. It can repel all sorts of opportunities. It's like crazy what the
Right.
money story is.
Because you may even get a lot of money, but because you have these belief systems that you don't deserve it, then eventually you probably lose
Yeah.
all of it.
And your wealth frequency, let's say we can muscle test, like what's your wealth frequency?
Oh
Uh,
wow, that's crazy. I never thought of that question. Wealth
yeah.
frequency.
So
Wow.
it basically means how much energy or money or magic or whatever can you hold? How many clients can you hold? It's like we check the capacity of the system to hold more and more and more. And if there's leaks, it just means that you might get an opportunity or make more money. But if your body only will hold, I don't know, $300 in your account, it will hemorrhage money everywhere. Like the car will break, or like things will happen where suddenly you have to pay a lot of money out and suddenly you have no money again. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, but I just did so well. Like, what's going on? Or some people have the opposite. Is like suddenly they're making more money than ever, and they have like, I don't know, 100 grand in the bank, but nothing feels right yet. It's like, so it's the opposite. It's like, it's not actually about more money. Wasn't going to make you feel safer or better or more
Hmm.
validated or more belonging or more successful. It's actually a feeling in the body. So that's a lot of kinesiology, is creating these feelings of home, love, money, wealth, all of that, creating that feeling of money, wealth, and home in the body, the felt sense in the body.
Hmm.
That's what it's all about. It's not necessarily an outside, it's not about finding this love or,
Right. It's
you
about
know,
the even if you wanna. I think like there's a quote. I think Eric Butterworth who used to say that it's not about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person. Right. He was a
yeah,
he was a
yeah,
unity minister in New York. Um, okay, I want to ask about. I know this is a bit maybe off topic a little bit, but it's related to spirituality and Kundalini energy, because it's based on a weird experience I had. Not really bad, but I was doing this. I was trying to learn from a friend of mine this healing stuff that he does, and then at the time I was seeing this Reiki master woman, and she did Reiki on me, and that was fine. And then she was like, "Well, do some healing on me." And then I did, and then what started happening was she was pulling some kind of energy from the like the feet, what was coming up, like from the feet, and it was coming up to the crown chakra. Like this wasn't Reiki, obviously, because I don't know how to do Reiki, but I was just praying to God to help me heal. And there was not really based on any specific technique, so maybe it was a Christian healing. I don't know what it was, but yeah, she felt some kind of energy, so that was not normal. So um somebody
in,
in
she felt that in you.
no, she felt that while I was doing the healing.
To her.
Yeah, she felt
Oh,
that on her, like she felt that there was some kind of energy going up from the
but
feet.
you were doing energy healing to her, and she was feeling that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but somebody told me later that maybe I was a healer in a past life, but I was like, I don't know, man. It's just, it's, I was just trying my best.
I think everyone has the power to heal or to um see, the thing with Reiki, they say opening up, I'm a universal channel of healing energy or something like that. It's like an opening. And the thing is that you can open to, if you go, I'm open to everything, you could open to anything that could come through. It's almost a bit too open, I think, sometimes. So I think
Right.
the intention is obviously very important. Like, this is going to be beneficial to everyone and all that kind of thing. Um, uh, but yeah, I think that when you have a lot of body, like spiritual body connection with yourself, then the people that maybe aren't grounded or that are less physical might feel it really strongly in their body. That's kind of them. If she's
Okay.
a bit floaty and you're quite grounded, she's going to feel like, whoa, that's powerful, that's strong. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Okay. Maybe it's that.
Really? I don't know, that's the first thing that came to mind. I don't really know what else it was. I mean, it doesn't sound like bad. It just
No, no,
sounds like,
no. She would. Um, yeah, it was a very good experience for her. It was just like very intense, I think.
yeah.
Cool.
Also,
Any.
and just that also everyone has different links to different planet energies. So if she
Hmm.
has one particular planet energy, this might have been giving her a frequency she hadn't experienced for a long time, kind of thing. So your planet energies brought in an energy that she needed, sort of thing. And it was like, finally, like a receptor site that had not been used.
Now you lost me. I don't know. Understand the planet energy thing. You had me until now, and now I'm lost. So you do. So okay. Anything we hadn't mentioned in the podcast. So I want to have you the opportunity to. So we talked a lot about the love connection, and if anybody's heart is, for lack of a better term, messed up, she's able to.
Okay.
You have a course. You teach a course about it. You teach a course on uh, for healers to be better public speakers, to promote themselves,
Yeah.
to attract money for what they deserve. We talked about aura transformation and
I mean,
kinesiology.
I think that's pretty much all the things. Um, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's all the things. I mean, there's a few more things that are going to come, but they're not here yet, which I
Right.
am excited about. But they're part of the puzzle of all my work, and then it feels like I've managed to put everything that's happened to me and that I've overcome into a kind of legacy, or like like, here it is, here's everything, the manual. Yeah, but I love teaching it and doing it, and I can't actually scale very well what I'm doing because I put so much personal work and effort into each course. There's a lot of feedback, there's a lot of
Mm.
actual time with me, there's the kinesiology group sessions, so it's pretty intensive, like time with the practitioner, and a lot of people say that's unheard of in online courses at the moment. And most people, I'd say like 80-90% of everyone that's done my courses says it's the best thing that they've ever done and invested in,
That's
which is
amazing. So you
yay.
provide good value. So you get probably a
Yeah.
lot of word of mouth clients.
Yeah.
Mm. That's
I
a good
can't really
sign.
I can't really advertise because the groups are so small. So I am trying to think, like, how can I'm actually getting a team together that are helping me with some of the pieces so I can do a few more people.
Right.
But yeah, I
Well,
want
you are advertising now, so here you go.
to, yeah. And like, yeah, I just want to keep the quality of that actual transformation, like real change, not just for a few minutes feeling good.
It
Yeah.
is your Facebook the main place where you can find you. So I'll put all the links that you give me on below the video.
Yeah, Facebook. I'll give you links to. Well, my Facebook page is where profile page is where I do most of the stuff. I've got like a website. I can send you the website for Visibility Gateway, and then for Heart Retrieval. And the other things is mostly like YouTube videos. So I've got loads of free
Cool.
content on YouTube, so I can just send you the link to that. Different playlists for different stuff. There's loads of AuraTransformation videos as well on there.
Cool.
The good,
Amazing.
the modalities and stuff. I just want to say thank you so much for letting me talk about all my weird life and stuff, because I don't really talk about how I got to this very
Yeah,
much.
but this is all.
Yeah.
This is why we do this. I mean, this is why I do this. Well, I don't know why I said we. This is why I do this. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a pleasure having you on and hearing your story. And what do you do?
Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed myself.
And thank you everybody for watching or listening.